Dishonored. The 2012 game is well known for its engaging characters, compelling story, and fun ways of murdering people. Awesome game mechanics.
I heard you.
One thing it's not known for is, well, being a comedy. Because it's not.
And it would be kind of weird if it was. I mean, in the first 5 minutes, your empress/lover gets stabbed through the gut, your daughter gets kidnapped by a bunch of masked freaks, and you get thrown in prison and tortured in a painfully transparent frame-up job that nobody else seems to think is a bit too convenient.
Look at what he's done. Yes, he's killed the Empress.
Plus, a ton of people are dead from a disease carried by man-eating rats. So, yeah, there's that.
Corvo, it's all coming apart.
That said, there are a few comedic gems hiding beneath the surface of Dishonored.
It's not so bad in here, except I miss your wife.
So, in anticipation of Dishonored 2, we've decided to take a look at the lighter side of Dunwall and bring you our picks for the top 10 funny moments in Dishonored. Number 10. Funny guard dialogue. Game devs often bury humor in the idle chit-chat of a game's NPCs, and Dishonored is no exception. One of my favorite examples can be overheard while sneaking onto Caldwin's Bridge after curfew.
I know. But if we do see someone, then what? Do we say something? Remind them about curfew?
No, you don't remind them. You chase them down, and you give them a severely deadly beating is what?
Okay, yeah, I got it. Severely deadly beating.
Because mildly deadly beatings are far too lenient.
And then there's this exchange.
And takes all his meals in his safety.
Eats way up there, on the roof. Don't he get dizzy stomach?
He doesn't eat while looking over the edge, though he has been known to take in the view now and then.
Oh, sure, I get you. I've taken the view in once in a while myself. No one's looking. Who don't?
What?
Not sure I want to know what they were talking about there. In my opinion, though, the funniest NPC dialogue comes from two members of the Bottle Street gang during the mission High Overseer Campbell.
Okay, here goes. The nobleman laid with the scullery maid, so loudly they made quite a riot. The nobleman's wife took the butchering knife and carved herself some peace and quiet.
Oh, I get it. The wife done kind of both, right?
Yeah, that's the gist. Now it's your turn.
There once was a sailor from Morley who fancied a woman most sorely. He gave her his cash, she gave him a rash, and that's all. There isn't no Morley.
Alright, you win.
Well, I know 100 of these old rhymes. My mummy used to tell them at me.
Boys will be boys, and when boys get bored, and there's no internet around, they make up dirty limericks.
Girls do that too, you know. In fact, I'll bet ours are even funnier and way dirtier.
Okay. Would you care to share one?
No, I don't think so. My mom could be watching, for God's sakes.
And speaking of dirty minds...
Number 9. Mr. Bunting is a bad, bad boy.
Local art dealer Mr. Bunting seems to have caught a tough break. His rat-infested apartment is in shambles, the Bottle Street gang is after the contents of his safe, and he meets Corvo Attano under the worst possible circumstances. Blindfolded and strapped securely into an interrogation chair.
I don't know what you mean. That's how I'd want to meet Corvo Attano. Let's just keep that between us.
Just between me, you, and the internet, okay.
Shush, internet, it's a secret.
Corvo happens upon Mr. Bunting at the Golden Cap, where the Pendletons are holding Emily Caldwin captive, which is all kinds of messed up on its own, but more on that later. It's hard to feel too bad for what you put Bunting through, since it turns out he's kind of a dick.
Your footsteps sound a little loud. Have you gained a little weight, honey? One shock out of line and you are out of a job. The Pendletons' inheritance was worth hundreds of thousands at least. I told them it was junk. I cheated them, robbed them of thousands.
Bear in mind that the Pendleton twins are in the building while he's saying this, leading me to believe he's not the sharpest blade in the spring razor.
After getting the combination to Bunting's safe, you can still complete the non-lethal quest option if you loot the safe yourself before turning the combination over to Slackjaw. I find it quite funny on its own that Slackjaw didn't see that coming. Inside the safe is Bunting's invitation to Lady Boyle's masquerade party, which can be used to gain access to the party a couple of missions later. This is completely unnecessary since another guest drops your invitation just as you arrive, but it's kind of fun leaving Bunting out in the cold and hearing the guards call you by his name.
Ah, Mr. Bunting.
just had someone here pretending to be you.
Maybe the cold is exactly what he needs.
Careful. I have a condition.
Talk about a string of bad luck for poor Bunting. Since we never see him again, I can only assume he was crushed to death by a falling piano as he walked home, and nobody missed him.
I deserve it.
Number 8. The Outsider finds Sokolov boring.
If Dishonored is a fancy dinner party, the Outsider is the guy who sucks every ounce of fun out of the room by talking to you about his opinion of eating veal, even though nobody there is eating veal, and you certainly didn't ask him about it. After one or two encounters with this Edward Cullen wannabe, one might begin to think that spending endless ages in an empty void dimension has completely robbed him of a sense of humor. However, there is one vindicating moment in his bland, endless monologues where he delivers this singer about Anton Sokolov.
Sokolov believes there are specific words and acts that can compel me to appear before him. He searches old temples in Pendicia and ruined sub-basements in the flooded district. He performs disgusting rituals beneath the old abbey. But if he really wants to meet me, he could start by being a bit more interesting.
That's a burn for the ages. As one of the foremost scientists and artists in the Empire, Sokolov is arguably one of the most interesting people of his time.
Yeah, but look at that guy. He looks like a Sasquatch had a baby with Sylvester Stallone.
Wait, so the Outsider is only interested in attractive people? Hang on. Yep, it totally holds up. No, wait a minute, what about Morris Sullivan?
Aw, you don't think that face is beautiful? He's just a big, constipated-looking baby that likes to torture and mutilate people. Technically, the person that gave him his power was blind at the time, but, you know, he ugly. She can't see. Perfect match.
Moving on, then.
Number 7. Sokolov's butt fetish.
Sokolov's diverse interests in art, science, and summoning the Outsider are rivaled, nay, dominated by one other that towers above the rest. His fascination with women's butts.
Just women's? I don't know, he gets pretty chummy with Piero later in the game.
Jamie, can't two guys bond over their common interest in natural philosophy without it being a sexual thing?
No, you're right. A little chemistry, a little biology, a little physics.
Moving on.
Why have you not tried the homeopathic solution?
Sokolov has painted portraits of almost every important character in the game, from Empress Jessamine to the Royal Torturer to the Assassin Dowd. Like, seriously, how do you get Dowd to stand for a portrait?
For the answer to that question, check out my Dishonored Let's Lore video.
Given the opportunity to immortalize whichever of the 3 Boyle sisters was banging the Lord Regent, Sokolov chooses to do so from behind in a work humorously titled The Obtuse Arguments of Lady Boyle.
I painted her to be sure, but I never saw her face or learned her first name. You see, I painted her from behind. I assure you, she still makes a striking portrait. But I do not know which Boyle she is. I can vouch that her hindquarters are the finest in the city, and perhaps the Empire itself.
Let's think about that for a sec. During the whole process of telling her where to stand and how to pose, he was so focused on her obtuse arguments that he didn't even know which Boyle sister he was painting, because he never looked at her face.
And the way he waxes poetic about hers being the finest hindquarters in all the city suggests that he's spent quite a bit of time studying the competition.
I'm just curious how Sokolov and the Lord Regent got Lady Boyle to agree to a portrait of her backside to begin with.
They probably told her it was artsy and transcendent, and not at all because they're creepy old men. Unless it was Esma, in which case it was probably her idea.
Speaking of segues, number 6. Esma Boyle is dying for some roleplay. Literally.
What a handsome group of guards we have. I hope this plague lasts forever.
Esma Boyle is the wild child of the Boyle family. If you sneak a peek at her diary in the mission Lady Boyle's Last Party, you'll find that she plans to bed the first man to ask for it, and the second after that. Hashtag YOLO, hashtag ask and ye shall receive.
At least she has standards. She expects them to ask, and, be alive, I guess?
If the game selects Esma as your target for the mission, you can outright tell her you're there to murder her, and she reacts like a drunk Twilight fangirl.
Oh, but this is perfect. I love it. What happens next? Are you gonna tie me up?
Esma leads you right to the privacy of her bedroom, thinking your murder threat is an attempt to initiate some kind of role play.
Well, here we are. What shall we do with ourselves?
And it only gets funnier if you don't kill her right away.
Well, this was a bit less interesting than I thought. Perhaps I'll leave you alone now. Less interesting, less interesting, less interesting.
Shut up! Your response doesn't matter. The outsider thinks I'm interesting.
Holy crap. You need to relax. Like, seriously. I think it's time for electroshock therapy. We've got too much to fit in one video, so we're going to be breaking this into 2 parts. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And thanks so much to Jamie Catalyst for her help in producing this episode. Check out her channel. She's got a new series called Let's Lore, and I got to guest star on the first few episodes all about Dishonored lore.